Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, my name's Rich McDonald, and I played David Mason in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and you're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
Hey everybody, you're listening to Everything Geek podcast. Thanks for listening.
Hey, it's Leif Gamfert. I played Uncle Ben's killer in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldovar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
You're listening to the Everything Geek podcast, bringing you interviews from your favorite films and TV shows every week, and all of the latest news. Here's your host, Rory Williamson.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host Rory, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have voice actress Veronica Taylor, best known as the original voice of Ash Ketchum, May and Delia Ketchum in Pokémon, and the voice of April O'Neil in multiple Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles projects, including Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles Forever, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Turtles in Time Reshod, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 Mutant Nightmare, Carmine, Ancient Fairy Dragon and Haluna in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, the second voice of Fonda Fontaine, and the voices of Crystal Beast Amethyst Cat, Dark Scorpion, Meanae the Thorn and Princess Rose in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Amelia in Slayer's Evolution Aura and Slayer's Try, Nico Robin in multiple One Piece projects, Setsuna Meioh in multiple Sailor Moon projects, Scarlett in G.I. Joe Sigma 6, Cynthia Graham in LA Noire, Kenta and Chris in Yu-Gi-Oh! Jen, Ponta and Meredith in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal and Hun in Pokémon Chronicles. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. That's pretty amazing. Those are some projects that even I didn't remember I was in. So thank you for that, Rory. I'm really happy to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
We're separated by an ocean, but through the internet we're sitting together.
Yeah, but in a few weeks that may not be the case when you're
That's right, I'll be in Dublin. Yeah, that's right. MCM Dublin. It's only a couple weeks away. I can't believe it.
It's scary. I still need to apply for a press pass.
You better get on that.
Yeah. Last year for the same convention, I applied like 2 weeks beforehand and got it.
Oh, so that's good. You're really relying on luck. I see.
Yeah.
Well, if it worked once.
Yeah, absolutely, but soon enough it won't be just a whole ocean separating.
That's right.
Yeah, very cool. Now getting into my questions for you, Veronica,
Sure.
To start off with, for some of our listeners that may not be familiar with your background, can you tell us how you got into voice acting originally?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly didn't set out to be a voice actor. I consider myself an actor who has most of her work in voice-related projects. I started acting when I was 5, and I went to college and grad school for acting. I've toured the U.S. with a number of acting companies, doing Shakespeare and children's theater and other contemporary plays. And I've worked on soap operas and some film and all of that. But, you know, interestingly, my career just kind of took a voice turn, I guess, and it luckily coincided with my daughter being born. So I was able to kind of, I don't know, when you're working on voice projects, it's in time increments, whereas when you're in a play, you rehearse all day and you do the show at night, or when you're working on a TV show, you've got these long hours of shooting, or on a film. But in voice projects, you go in an hourly way. Like I could have worked on Pokemon for 4 hours and then worked on another show for 1 hour and then I was living in New York, so run uptown to work on something else for another hour. And it's kind of like a mosaics in a way, and you're piecing together this whole piece that becomes the picture of your career. And so for me, it was lucky that I was able to kind of piece things together, because then I could piece it around my daughter. So I could be home when she needed me to, or go on field trips for school. And then, so as I was doing more voice work, more auditions for voice-related projects came my way. So I don't know, it's just kind of happened that way. It's certainly not something I set out to only do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting, because it's really great that you focused your career around your daughter, so you could be there for her as well as, do the acting as well, which obviously you wanted to do. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, and you still have to pay the rent. But, the lucky thing for me is that I've been able to be there for my daughter, and she certainly has been there for me. So it's a two-way street, definitely, that we're driving on here. How many more analogies can I make? But it's been really lucky, and certainly made my life better in a more well-rounded way.
Definitely. Can you tell us how you were originally cast as Ash in Pokemon?
Yeah, I was working on Slayers. I don't know how many of you watched that, but Slayers was an amazing project that's so weird, and my first big anime that I worked on, that I really got into this world. And, there's so much magic and food and all those piles of plates, which is my favorite thing as they're gobbling away. I was working on that, and the people who cast me in that were doing the casting for Pokemon. So that was just a case of, I guess, being in the right place at the right time. So I was asked to audition, and then I auditioned and auditioned and auditioned like everyone did. And then I was cast as Ash.
That's very exciting, and in many ways I'm sure you'd probably agree. I mean, being cast as Ash has had a big impact on your life. You get to do all of the conventions and meet fans. Lots of Ash fans out there, of course. Did you have any idea when you were cast in the show that it would end up becoming one of the most popular animes?
No, definitely not. I think we all seriously doubted that it would even go on TV. In the beginning, we were told that it would be on TV, and we're all like, okay, that's right. We'll wait till that actually happens. And then it did show up at 6 a.m. and then moved to 6:30. And then I didn't really know people were watching it because, we go to work and we're sitting in a tiny booth, and you have the director and the engineer there and yourself, and you are in this weird insulated world, not knowing if anyone's watching anything that you're working on. But when I was on the bus in New York, just a regular public bus, I guess I first got an inkling that it was popular because kids were talking about it on their way to school. And then I kind of understood that it was getting bigger and bigger. And then the first movie came out. And, when you think back to 1999, 2000, when it came out, there weren't that many... I guess maybe it was Thanksgiving 1999, was it? Now I can't remember. We started the show here in 98, but it was the highest grossing movie, especially for kids. And when you consider at that time, tickets were half of what they cost now, and most of those tickets were kids' tickets. So it was an amazing thing, especially for the time. And then I think we all knew that it was big. But for me personally, being able to go to conventions and talk to people about their experiences when they were younger, watching Pokemon, growing up with the show, being able to play a character like Ash, who is in a sense every man, and through him, we go on the journey, and we go on our Pokemon adventures, and to be able to play a character that was so real, even though animated, and go through the joys and the frustrations and the sadness that he did. I haven't had a chance to play, in a sense, a character that's so well-rounded, and to play that for 8 years was an incredible joy for me and a great challenge. But then to now get to share those experiences with everyone else who went through it in a way, the way I did, it's been extraordinary. And there's nothing else in my life that equals that. And so, yes, the show was popular and the games are popular and all of that, but really what's amazing to me is what it meant on a deeper level to all of us. And I don't know that that's matched anywhere. We all have shows that we grew up watching and that we love and all of that, but there's something about Pokemon that's very special for all of us. And that's something I never, ever could have imagined, even now, 20 years later, that we'd be talking about it and still kind of experiencing it together.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting what you mentioned, especially with the kids you overheard talking about it.
Yeah.
Because of course they are the target audience
Yeah.
of the show, and I grew up on the show. I'm not even actually afraid to admit I'm just as old as the show,
Right?
which is 21 years, and yeah, you're one of the few guests I've told my actual age too, so
Wow.
you should.
It's safe with me, Ruari. I'm only 10. You should stay 10.
Yeah, really should.
Yeah. Ash just pops out from time to time, so.
yeah, that is a much more preferable age, absolutely.
I think so. And also, when you think about it, when we're 10, everything is possible. And so you didn't have to pay rent. You didn't have that much homework, your chores. There weren't that many of them. All of that stuff where when you're 10, a lot of what you're thinking about is what you're going to do when you're playing outside. And your imagination is it's growing, and anything is possible. So there is a part of us that I think stays 10. And that's why I think we can all go back on this journey at any point, because Ash stays 10. And we all need to kind of touch base with that 10-year-old inside all of us from time to time to see kind of what path we're on, and if we're on the path that we feel passionately about, that, you check yourself. And I think checking in with your 10-year-old self is the right way to do it.
Yeah, moral of the story, be Ash Ketchum.
Well, the moral of the story is be yourself. But
Yeah.
If you want to model yourself after me, what can I say? But seriously, I think you have to be yourself and kind of listen to yourself. I mean, if you really want to get into it, Ash, he needed to go on this journey, and for some reason his mother let him, which I wouldn't do with my daughter. But he set out to follow his goal. This was something he was very passionate about and was able to do it. So we all have to kind of model that as well, because when you are following your passion and doing things that you feel deeply about, it doesn't seem like work. You're healthier. You're able to really function on a higher level. So we can use Ash as a mentor, but we have to kind of be ourselves, I think.
I definitely agree. But just saying, if you do send your daughter on their journey,
Yes.
like Delia sent Ash off, make sure that your daughter knows how to cook before then, because Ash to this day still doesn't know how to cook.
That's right. And I think he only was traveling with like one pair of underwear and no money. Luckily he had Brock, who apparently could cook. But yeah, you don't know who your traveling companions will be. So you have to kind of be able to do everything yourself and then delegate. So yeah, my daughter's on her own little journey. She just started college, so I have had to let her go, but she's not 10.
Well, that's very impressive, and congratulations
Oh,
to
thank
your
you.
daughter.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
She knows how to cook, right?
She does, yeah. Yes, she does.
That's good. That is really good. Okay, jokes aside.
Yeah.
Okay. Ash has become such an iconic character, especially for fans that have grown up watching the show and are still watching it to this day. What was it that you liked about the character when you were cast originally?
I think it's really his energy, and what I learned to love about him was how positive he is or was. I think I took it for granted a bit until the writing changed at one point, and Ash is someone who would never say, we'll never get out of here. He's always thinking, what can we do? How can we make this better? In a sense, how can we work together? So that's something that I I guess working as Ash, I became much more aware of how important that is. So also, I did a lot of stage combat, and I don't get to fight a lot in my real life, so I kind of really love the battles. All of that stuff. I think Ash is a great character because he fails, but then he picks himself back up again and learns from it. And I think that's a great characteristic to have in a main character, let's say.
Definitely. And would you agree that his positivity, as well as the way he keeps picking himself up, as you just said, is why Ash is liked so much by the younger fans?
I think so, because I think we all can see ourselves in him. And we learn. I mean, we all cite the Butterfree episode as something that was incredibly emotional. And, that's something where through the show, as a younger viewer, you learn how to let go. We constantly, in our lives, as much as we try, we still fail. We still lose people or animals or things that are important to us. And this show was kind of a vehicle to learn how to maneuver through those heavy emotions. We all need to make friends. We need to learn to work together. And Ash kind of showed us how to do that. So, obviously the show started as a big commercial for the games and, and all of that stuff. But I think it does have a deeper level where we can learn morals, let's say, or different life lessons through it. So I do think that's one of the reasons that Ash kind of transcends these generations.
I completely agree. I've always felt, even to this day, where the show is very different, of course, though obviously Ash is still the main character. I think that's always been something the writers have done very well, is have important life lessons, that people can take into the world, younger viewers or otherwise, so I think it really is great in that way, so I'm glad you brought that up.
And I think that's something we get from anime as well. I think a lot of Japanese storylines have bigger messages to them, more so than American TV shows or cartoons. So, we can only be thankful that this originated in Japan, because it's bigger than maybe if it had originated here in America or Ireland or, anywhere. It was, I think that's kind of in the culture, and we certainly have benefited from that.
Yeah. Though, you brought up the Butterfree episode. I still haven't let that go.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's things we're all working on, Ruari.
Yeah. I was just joking, but yeah, it's still sad even when
it's very sad,
that episode.
But that is life, though, isn't it? It's sad, and when we watch it, we cry, and through that we release, and that's just part of our little journeys as human beings, I think. And then I think it would be more sad the day you watched it and didn't cry, because then you're kind of, blocking it all out. You're not really opening yourself to that moment. So I think you should be proud that you still cry. I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that makes me feel a lot of relief. If anyone judges me from now on, I can say, well, the main actress on in that season said,
cry.
The original main actress, said cry.
Yeah, that's how. There's so many things in life today that are horrible, and we are bombarded in the news by horrific events, and because we're so bombarded, we begin to just kind of block it out. If you didn't block it to a certain in a certain respect, you would be crying all the time. So you need to understand how to be empathetic, and you need to understand how to protect yourself. So it's both of those things. But we all still have to understand emotion and feel for things that are happening. And Butterfree is just a great example of something that you can focus on and let some emotion out there. And that's in a little 22-minute episode. But, it translates to our lives every day.
Absolutely. Now, you were already voicing Ash and Delia, who would show up from time to time before voicing another main character in May, who, like Ash, was a regular character for a while. What was the recording process like with two main characters in the show? Would you record all of Ash's lines for an episode and then record all of May's, for example?
Yep, that's exactly right. Because it's anime and because it was done in Japanese originally, we would do one whole track of just one character. So I would do all of Ash's lines, and then I would go back and do all of May's, and then if Ash's mom was in the show, I would do all of her lines, and then any other characters I did, those would come after that. When I'm working on something like Ninja Turtles, where there's a group of us in there, or I work on Astro Blast, there were a couple of us in the booth. So things like that where it's you are the original actors. We do that more like a radio play. So then you switch off on characters as they show up in the script.
It's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to also admit, growing up, May was actually my favorite of the companions.
Oh, yeah?
Because I was also in that generation where I actually thought the Advanced Generation series was good. Not everyone did.
Right.
I don't get it to this day. Strange people, but yeah.
Everyone can't like everything. So that's okay.
Yeah, I just like having my own opinion.
Well, and you're welcome to it. I think that's good. May, I thought, was a very strong character, and I certainly was happy to play her because there, especially at that time, there just aren't that many strong female characters. And then she had the added responsibility of her little brother tagging along, so she's kind of going after her goals, but also having to kind of be a mother in a way and kind of balance that, which I think a lot of people watching the show could kind of feel for her, because at home they're watching their little brother or sister, and a lot of people have more responsibilities at home, and you can relate to her in a better way.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my favorite episodes in the Advanced Generation series was that time where Ash and May get separated from Brock and Max, and
oh yeah,
like they find the boat, and like it's like her last contest, I think, and the one she had to get the 5th ribbon for. Now this one I haven't rewatched in a while, so
neither have I.
Memory.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, there was a moral dilemma for May, because, like, she could get the boat and go to the contest, or, like, find Max, which obviously is the older sibling, was
right.
kind of a responsibility. It's like, I loved the, like, dilemma she was in. Like, it was great storytelling,
right.
And she decided, like, to sacrifice the contest and find Max. It was fortunate that someone showed up to bring them there anyway.
Yeah.
So... yeah, but I really liked that. I really liked the characterization of May, so especially what you said with being the sibling and,
right.
Also having her own goals as well.
Yeah, and it does show you that sometimes you have to make a choice that's not just about you, and that happens all the time in our lives, and it's always the right choice, really. I'm just going to say that, always. Other people can say something about that later, but for now, let's just say it's always the right choice.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. What would you say were the highlights from your time voicing Ash, May, and Delia on Pokemon?
Definitely having a job for 8 years. It was pretty incredible, and to be able to have all of that time to really flesh out the characters and get to know them. I think I liked the characters a lot. Delia is certainly the least challenging. She was kooky and lovely, and but you didn't get to know a lot about her. With the Ash, we could understand him more deeply, and so I think that was definitely the highlight for me, is just really getting to play those characters.
That's a really great answer. Now, of course, this is a more tricky question. It's the thing I'm sure you've been asked about so many times over the years, but yeah, won't really be an interview if we didn't tackle this subject, I guess.
Yeah.
So, how did you find out that yourself and the rest of the original main cast members on Pokemon were going to be replaced?
We were actually getting ready to do the 10th anniversary special. I think they had sent all the materials to 4Kids, and it was just like a matter of days before we got started. And then we were told that Pokmon USA had found replacements for us and that we were no longer needed. We had a little bit of time left in the 8th season, so we were to just finish that out, and that would be it. So that was pretty much it. No drama there, just that, and then it was over. So there wasn't really anything we could do, and Pokemon USA had decided not to renew the contract with 4Kids, and so they basically cut everyone who was working on the show previously out.
I mean, it's just my personal opinion, but like I feel like obviously they had their mind set on that, and you can't really change their mind when someone has, something said on it, but I feel like they should have at least done the respectful thing and like called everyone individually that was working on the show to let them know. It's like,
yeah, this is business. I don't think they really cared about that. We had contracts with 4Kids, and they just cut the contracts. So, I mean, personally, I don't think they cared about us or the fans or anything. They just were thinking about themselves producing the show. So, I don't know. But anyway, at least we had 8 good years with the show, and I loved working on Pokemon. It was a big part of my life, and it changed my perspective on so many things. So, I'm certainly very grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, that's the really great viewpoint to have, is that you are grateful for your time on the show. And of course, so many fans like myself are grateful for your contributions to the show over the years.
Oh, thank you.
The one thing I will say in addition, though, is because the Battle Frontier arc had just started, I feel like if they were going to make that decision,
if only we could have finished it out.
Yeah.
Yep, I totally agree.
At least wait until the end of Battle Frontier.
That's right.
I think that was such a good season
of
the show, but the fact that their voices were replaced in the middle of it, or near the start of it, whichever it was,
right.
I can actually remember, it was just a bit
yeah, we were all left kind of in the middle. Yep, I totally agree.
Yeah. Now, of course, there's a new Pokemon movie coming out this year that a lot of fans are excited about, because we'll tell a new story of the beginning of Ash's journey.
Right.
A lot of fans are also hoping that you will be voicing Ash in the film. Have you been asked by the crew making the film if you will do it?
I have not been contacted, although I'm pretty sure they know how to contact me. I would be honored to play Ash, especially because from what I've seen online, probably less than what everyone else has seen, but it looks like Ash in the very beginning, and it seems to be about the beginning, which is the part that I played, and it would be so great to be able to pop in and kind of give voice to that. It would be an extraordinary honor. So I still am hoping, but I don't have any news to say that anyone has contacted me.
Fair enough, but if earlier in the interview is any evidence, you've still got the Ash voice perfect.
Thanks, Ruari. This is it's early morning, so I guess I could get up here a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. I'm trying not to geek out too much.
I'm just going to push you too far, aren't I? Ruari, ask the next question.
Which has been the most challenging role in your career so far, Ash?
This interview. I think the most challenging role. You know what? I would say auditions, because I get so many auditions, and what you have to do for an audition is, you read through the script, try to figure out who the character is, and you invest yourself in that as if you were playing the character. So So you have these little parts that you play every day, and you get into it and you love the character, and then you send your audition off and never hear back from anyone. So I think the most challenging really is looking for work. And maybe people don't talk about that so much. Once you have the job, you get to just work. And so in a way, that's what all your training is about. So you're there. And even with Pokemon, we never knew if we were going to keep our jobs anyway or how long the show would last. But every day you go to work, you're in it and you're giving 100%, and you're working, whatever the project is. But it's getting the work that I think is the most challenging, and waiting for auditions and then auditioning and then waiting to hear back.
Yeah, it's a really interesting answer, and it's very different from anything I've been told by different guests on the podcast. Like, they would usually think about a role, sometimes spend a long time trying to think of a role that was challenging.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really like that you actually did something different and said the auditions.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, that's the biggest part about, here we are, we're talking about Pokemon, but there's so many things that I've auditioned for and wanted to do, and then later you hear what they cast, or there's commercials you audition for, and then you go, oh, that's what they were going for? That's not at all what was written in the description, or all of this kind of stuff. So you, as an actor, you constantly have to stay positive, and you have to keep moving forward, and that's difficult because there's a lot of negatives in your way. So yeah, I think it's challenging. I mean, that's why everyone would say, especially my favorite acting teacher ever said, look, if there's anything else you can do other than be an actor, do that. Because it's, the highs are high and the lows are low, and there's many more lows than highs. So it's got to be something that you really love, because otherwise, why would you put so much energy into it? Because you're working so hard to try to find work all the time.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
My final question for you, Veronica, do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I'm currently in Ollie and Moon, which is a cartoon for little kids. It's about two cats who travel around the world, and it's on Sprout. I'm also in Mophie, which is in Australia, and other places. You can find it online. I play a couple characters in that. I have a show coming out on Nickelodeon soon, but I don't know when that is. I'm in Sailor Moon Crystal. I play Sailor Pluto, and that's out now. And we're also redubbing the original episodes of Sailor Moon. So I'm Pluto in those and other characters that, you come across. I have a few other projects. I don't know when they're coming out. I work on a lot of apps. I work on a million different things, some a bit more interesting than others, I think. But I'm busy all the time, and I'm trying to update things on my website. Should be finished soon, and I'll put projects there. But also on my Facebook page, I put projects up as they come. And then certainly through Twitter.
That's very exciting. Well, I'll be sure to keep an eye out for anything that you announce that you're working on soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, and look forward to hearing more when you have more stuff to confirm. So that's all of my questions for you, Veronica.
Okay.
Before I let you go, we also have a couple of questions from listeners of our podcast, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely fine.
So Kelly Bone would like to know, you have been a part of the voiceover industry for over 20 years now. What are the biggest changes you have noticed in the industry in that time?
Well, I think one of the biggest changes is technology. I mean, here we are doing this interview through Skype. I don't have to be sitting with you, which is unfortunate, but also very fortunate because we can just kind of talk at any point. 20 years ago, you couldn't do that. You also needed to be somewhere if you were recording something. Now, I recently moved from New York to LA, and I have projects that I started in New York that I can record from my home studio. That didn't exist as much 20 years ago. And that I can connect with them while I'm recording it and then just pop the files off. That, I can also be traveling and record things and send it. So when I'm traveling or since I have moved, I haven't lost work that I had, where 20 years ago I would have lost that work. I think we're still struggling with strong female characters. There are more women playing boys' roles, but there still aren't enough lead female characters, I think. So that's a change that I think we're still wanting to happen. But I think there's much more animation than there used to be, so that's a pretty exciting change. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of diversity in the work. There are a lot of influences from other countries coming into the work. All of that, I think, is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting that you mentioned technology, because obviously it has had such a big impact in the last 10 and 20 years. Obviously, you mentioned how it affects voiceover, which is really great that you can record stuff even after moving.
Yep.
So it's really great.
The bad thing is that for instance, for me, and many actors actually, you record auditions on your own now. We don't always go into a casting director. So I record animation here at home. People record their on-camera auditions at home. And so you don't have the input of a casting director to kind of challenge you in the moment while you're auditioning. And I think that makes it harder for people to get work because you don't get to know the people who are casting you. It's only through a callback that you actually have some face-to-face time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's even been one or two people out there that, because they don't get face-to-face feedback on the audition, I know they send in multiple auditions.
That's right.
To be on the safe side or the not-so-safe side.
Yeah, well, you usually do 3 takes, and then you send it to your agent. I don't know how many they actually send in, but usually for voiceover you do 3 takes. But if you were doing 3 takes in front of a casting director, they could steer that second take in a different direction, more towards what they were imagining. Now it's just me imagining what they might want. So it certainly makes things more difficult.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I really like that you brought up that even now in animation there's not a huge amount of like strong lead female characters. Like, I think Pokemon is one of the best at that, actually, even to this day.
Yeah.
I think that Pokemon has done a really great job of strong female characters. Obviously, you voiced May. Misty was great. And even in the more recent shows, like, I'm a big fan of Serena and Dawn from XY and Diamond and Pearl, respectively.
Right.
Like, so even to this day, I think Pokemon is one of the best animes for strong female characters.
Right. Yeah, so hopefully we'll get more female writers and we'll get more female characters.
Absolutely, yeah, that would definitely be a great thing to happen, especially on the back of such a big film that came out recently, Wonder Woman.
Right.
With a female director too. Like, its success will hopefully lead to more strong female characters all over the industry.
Yeah, well, I think there's a misconception that men won't go to see films or maybe watch cartoons where the lead is female. And so, but women will go to see anything in a way. So, I think we have to look more towards what people want to watch and what they will go to watch. But also, if you're only being fed one thing, sometimes you don't look to see what else is out there. So I think the mindset has to change around the whole industry, really.
Absolutely. The way I see it is, the most important thing is that it should be a strong character. Like, they should have flaws, but like also be strong and have a good storyline. Like, for me, it doesn't really matter so much if it's male or female. Like, if they have a good story and are
That's right.
just all around good characters, that's what really should matter, not the gender. Like, it should be story first, basically.
I totally agree. And that's the whole thing where writers are so important. We need good stories.
Absolutely. And our final question
Yes.
for you is from Florence Trask, who says, and she admits that she does cry about Pokemon. I tear up when
Right.
watching a lot of I tear up when watching a lot of Pokemon movies. Did you ever cry when you were recording any of the Pokemon movies, and if so, which ones?
Certainly I am involved emotionally in whatever, just for the sake of this conversation, whatever Ash is going through. And so I probably cry a little more easily than he does. But yes, I'm definitely moved. And all of those, I think I recently was watching the movie that had Celebi in it. And that at the end, it's so sad when they're dipping Celebi in the water and to try to bring it back to life. And, all of those things, I certainly cry. I do a lot of audiobooks, and I often have to stop because when I start crying, then my nose gets stuffy. And then as a narrator, you can't have a stuffy nose. You can't be crying like the character was. So I have to really work to have the emotion but not fully let it out because it ruins the rest of the reading. So all of that I wrestle with. I mean, I cry at emotional commercials on TV. So I cry pretty easily at things when I'm moved by things, let's say. So certainly in Pokemon, I was moved. All the times that everybody else cried, I did too.
Definitely. Don't worry, Florence. We all cry over Pokemon.
That's right.
Yeah. And I'm not afraid to admit that. Still, the scene where Ash gets turned to stone in the first film and Pikachu is trying to use his electricity to wake him up, it still gets me all the time.
I know. It is amazing. And I recently watched that movie again in a movie theater because Cinemark, I think, re-released it here in the U.S. And it was the coolest thing because it's a movie theater full of adults, and everybody knew the lines and was shouting things out along with the movie, and everybody cried at that point. Adults. So we're all quite moved by those things. And again, I think that's a good thing. You have to kind of keep in touch with that part of yourself.
Absolutely. So that's all of our questions for you today, Veronica. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Rory. It's been great talking with you.
Thank you, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
I hope so too.
Talking to you again sometime soon. And
thanks so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Time to wrap up today's show. Make sure to check out our podcast links, check out our website.everythinggeekpodcast.com/EGP, check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast, check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast, check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp, check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/official-everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the following email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comic Cast, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekcomiccast. Make sure to check out the hosts' YouTube channels. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/Septus Destroyers. Check out Veronica Taylor on Twitter, twitter.com/theveronicat, and check out channel 1138 where we broadcast live from, www.channel1138.com. Geeks out, everyone.
At this stage in my life, I'm really enjoying voice acting for so many different reasons. One, because it's, only 4 years in, and it feels very new to me, and so every every time that I
hey,
get to go.
I need new female voices. Do you know anybody? And I had just met him. So he sent my information along, and I went in, and I got cast